Welcome to the Pulpit and Porch. I'm Tony Marr, and with me as always is my friend Robert Kell.
Hey everybody, we are so glad you're here. The Pulpit and Porch is where we kick back, put up our feet, and have real conversations about life, faith, growth, and maybe even a little sports and pop culture.
If you're looking for a perfectly polished sermon, you're probably in the wrong place.
Yeah, around here, it's more about those honest, heart-to-heart conversations, like the one you'd have on a front porch with good friends. Sometimes we stay on track, sometimes we take the scenic route.
And honestly, that's half the fun, isn't it? We dig into the highs, the lows, and all the in-betweens of living out your faith in real life. Along the way, we may pull up a few extra chairs and invite some friends onto the porch to share stories and ideas that just may change the way that you see things.
So whether you're chasing your purpose, building your faith, or just trying to live a little more fully, pull up a chair, grab some sweet tea, and join us. This is the Pulpit and Porch. We got a seat waiting for you.
Summer's the perfect time to be on the porch.
It can be, unless it's hot, then I'd rather be inside.
Sit in a rocking chair, have the grill going, some burgers and dogs on the grill, nice glass of lemonade or sweet tea, and good conversations with friends and family. That's summertime.
It used to be. I don't know how much it is anymore, but it is. It's good times. I don't have a porch. I don't have a front porch.
You don't have a porch?
No, we have a deck on the back. We don't have a front porch.
What's the difference between a porch and a deck?
Depth.
Does it have to do with depth or does it have to do with height?
I don't know. If you walked out, if you had somebody who had a single level home and they had something on their back, or the back of their house that had it was just there and it was a 12 by 12 area, what would you call it? If it was on the back of their house?
A deck.
But that same thing was on the front of their house, what would you call it?
Wow, now you've messed me up.
I don't know.
So what's a patio? Is a patio concrete? If it's made out of concrete, it's a patio. If it's made out of wood, it's a deck.
I typically think of patios as enclosed.
Do you really?
Maybe.
But
the screened-in porch.
I was about to say a screened-in porch.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where
you
patios...
don't say screened-in patio.
No, I don't know where patios fit into that whole world. But as far as porch and deck, that's typically my thought is if it's on the front of the house, it's a... Now, here's the thing. It's a wraparound porch, which is one of the reasons I think you don't see a lot of 12 by 12s on the front of a house. It's something it's a little more narrow, enough room for a rocking chair and somebody to walk by. You're never watching a movie and they go, let's go out to the porch, and they go to the backyard. And so that anyway, those are just things that I'm thinking about.
So for you, a porch is on the front, a deck is on the back.
Yeah. And it probably has to do with depth as well. Like just how that would, porches are more like where you sit on the rocking chair and hang out and do those things. And the deck is more of sitting around the table on the back, the patio table.
According to the Google, a deck is a raised open air platform typically attached to the side or back of a house used for outdoor living and entertaining. A porch, on the other hand, is a covered structure, often at the front of the house, providing a sheltered transition between indoor and outdoor spaces. So a porch has a cover on it. A deck is open air. Placement also plays a factor.
I would say placement, because I know people who have covered decks on the back of their house. I don't call it a porch just because they put a cover over it. I don't think most people would. But anyway.
Robert, last week we spent 50 minutes doing this, talking about nothing.
We've just about done the exact same thing. We're like an hour from now, we're going to be going like, so now where's the patio fit in? And
by the time this airs, it's going to be fall.
We're going to have paper out, drawing diagrams and measuring things. Okay. If it's this much.
Welcome onto the Porch and Architect.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. But there we go. Front porch. It's a beautiful time. and it's covered, which is probably why I like
Welcome
it more.
to the pulpit and deck.
Yeah. I don't want to be on the deck. There's no cover. I want to be on the porch where there's a cover and maybe a little ceiling fan up there floating around and things like that. So that's what I want.
My back deck that you walk up every time you come to join the show every week has a cover on it. So is it actually a porch?
Yes.
But it's on the back of the house.
It is, but it's probably a deck because of how it's there. It feels very, very different.
Now you're just confusing me,
but
man.
this is definitely a porch.
That's a porch.
That's definitely a porch on the front of your house.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's all we've got. We need to talk about summer.
Summertime and the living's easy.
See, I would. It's funny because the two songs that would come to my mind would be "Summertime" by Fresh
DJ
Prince,
Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince,
and then from Phineas
late
and
in the
Ferb.
day, and I ain't been on the court yet. Hustle to the mall to get me a short set. Yeah, I got on sneaks, but I need a new pair because basketball courts in the summer got girls there.
There you go.
Temperature is about 88. Hop in the water plug just for old time's sake. Head to the crib, change your clothes once more because you're invited to a barbecue that's starting at 4. Are we going to get in like copyright infringement now?
I don't know. I don't know that you have any background music, and so probably,
I don't know that you could call that music.
The AI probably won't pick up on that, but anyway. So yeah, and then there's a Phineas and Ferb song that talks about summer. And so, yeah.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Can you drop a few lines?
No, I cannot. The new Phineas and Ferb comes out June 5th. I'm pretty excited to see
New Phineas and Ferb?
Yep.
We're back to movies and stuff. Is that a TV show or a movie?
TV show.
TV show.
And so they did do a movie, but it's coming back. So anyway.
What do you want to do today?
Hey, Ferb. I love that show so much. I'm very excited. I will watch it this summer, even if it's by myself.
Which it very well might be.
Something we need to, at some point in time, I want to talk about, not today, because we really got to get going on this episode, is Disney's newish show, Win or Lose.
Never heard of it.
It's very, very
Is
interesting.
It a game show?
Nope. It's a cartoon. It's on Disney Plus, but it's a cartoon, and each episode covers a different person in it. And the opening episode is a girl who is one of the characters, a Christian, is praying, very much struggling, starting to deal with anxiety. And anxiety grows, and they made it a visible thing that you can see, but nobody else can. And she knows it's there. And so it's this really interesting conversation. And so be fun. I'd love for you to, Mel and I watched the first episode the other day, and
Netflix edited that out.
No, it's on Disney. Yeah, Netflix probably won't get access to that one. But anyway, Win or Lose, it's interesting. I've only watched one. I can't speak to anything else, but it's at least a good conversation show. If you're looking at this point in time, if you're looking for a show to sit with your kids and watch it and then talk about the good, the bad, what the scriptures say, maybe what some things we face. Hey, what are you struggling with? I think it's an incredible show right now. I can't speak to anything else. It might be, as you said in the last episode, a Mr. Robot moment where I sit and watch a couple more episodes and I come back and I have to go, hey, really got to apologize. I have no clue where it's going to go. I don't know the development of any of the characters. I know nothing about any of it, but other than I was interested in watching the show. I flipped it on, and literally it was me and Mel. No kids. I like watching cultural driven things, and Disney's shaping culture. And so I flipped it on. So I just wondered what kids were watching, and that was it was interesting. So it's good stuff.
Hey, so let's dive right into where we hoped to go last week, and we got sidetracked for almost an hour. We're talking about summer, and summer for a lot of leaders, especially church leaders, is a stressful time. It's a difficult time. So what's one word that you would use to describe summer ministry?
I think I said last episode, for me, it can be exhausting at times because I feel like the rhythms have to change. You can't expect things to function the way they normally do. And that's really hard for small churches. And so it requires leaders and leadership who want to adapt. I mean, something we talk about here often is because, especially for me, when I'm talking with churches that are getting ready to move from a setup tear down system to a brick and mortar, they've got their own space. I'm always like, my question is always, what does your drape and rod person do next week? And they're always like, I've not thought about that. I mean, literally, I've never had anyone go, oh, Tommy and Bill are going to be doing the blah, blah, blah. I mean, they're always like, I don't really know. We haven't decided. And I'm like, how long have I been doing this? Oh, 2 years. How many Sundays have they missed? I don't think they've missed one. And I was like, if you don't find something for them, they're going to have a space. So now you're sitting here and you're going, like, when you've got people that involved. So if you're in a setup and tear down situation still, you may not see the drift as much. You may not see the decline, the drop, people going out, at least from your key leaders. And that's really where we find our struggles as leaders. We're stepping into a space and we're sitting and we're going, I don't know what to do tomorrow, because like sometimes you just show up and the person who was going to open the door didn't open the door. The person, or they just aren't there. The person who, I think I saw something, and just, if you've ever led worship, taught children's ministry right before you preached the sermon, you've been a pastor at a small church in the summer. and I think that's really this vibe, and what you get and how you feel is just, how do you take and just go, hey, boys and girls, we're here. Oh, sorry, wrong crowd. And I mean, you're just like, I feel like I'm doing everything. And it's really the key leaders that are there. When you walk in and you're going, who's running sound today? It's those things of, and some people go, man, we haven't had that happen. I mean, I walk in some days and go, hey, who's on the sound? Because that's not I don't schedule them. I don't know. And so I'm usually there before everybody. And so if I bump into someone, I'll go, hey, who's doing this today? And they'll be like, oh, it's this person, this person, this person. I'm like, okay, cool. But I don't, I mean, if you're showing up though, and you're going, okay, there's 6 of us that do this thing, and all of a sudden 2 of them don't show up, you're going, how do I run sound and preach the sermon this morning? And those are hard things and things and stuff. So what about you? What's the word?
I would say stretchy. Everything in the summer is pulled tight. You've got schedules, you've got volunteers, you've got patience, right? Is all pulled tight. And I also think that summer stretches us in ways that they can be very revealing. Sometimes we snap back into place. Other times we just plain snap.
That's always my fear, is the snapping part. Like, I don't know that we've talked about this much. I mean, I think that that's a default, deep in my core, that I've had to work hard on for a bunch of years. And just when things get stressful, my default used to be just to like, and I didn't, and I wouldn't get to a place of private. Like I've had some hard conversations with you, like or frustrated conversations with you before, and I'm just going, I don't know what to do here. And you let me vent for 30 minutes, and then we spend, another 30 going, okay, how do we unpack that and really work through it? And a lot of times, I mean, you'll go, okay, I don't know if you're quite that mad, but it's, you probably need to figure out a way to handle this part of that a little bit. But like used to, I mean, just early, 30 years ago, 20 or, whatever. Yeah. 30 years ago now. I would just kind of explode wherever. And those are the things for me. That stretchy part of the reactive is hard and complicated. So,
yeah, it is. And I think hearing you talk about, because you're living it every single day. Mm-hmm. Me, I'm not in full-time church ministry. And so you're living that every day. And I see that a lot in you, that everything is just pulled tight. It's stretched to its max. And you hope that when you hit back into fall, that that is going to snap back into place and everything's going to come, and you hope that you don't snap before that happens.
I think one of the tensions that in any church, but especially in a small church, one of the tensions that we run into is we're all fearing COVID 2.0 with church attendance. COVID happened, people got comfortable sitting at home, and we have so many things, so many options of service online and things like that. And I've got a friend all the time that's like, I'm not really trying to compete or to be like cutting edge with our service. Like, I just want it to be online. And for the equipment we have, I want it to look good. He said that here, the tension so many times is like, because if somebody's looking for something great, Craig Rochelle, Andy Stanley, Louis Giglio, Jonathan Pocluda, all those churches have incredible setups, and their sound is perfect, and their worship sounds like you're standing in the room. Elevation, it would be the same way with Stephen and those guys there. I mean, all of these churches those larger churches have this incredible setup. And we probably can't have that, but I think the fear is people got comfortable. And so if you're going to go watch something and you're just wanting to watch for quality and content online, you're going to find the person that connects with you inside of those 5 names I just mentioned, and you're going to watch that every week. But if you're looking for community, like, you're not going to get that probably by watching us online, but if you'll show up. And when COVID happened, people got comfortable at home. And then I've got friends that it took people in their church that served every Sunday. Like, they were a brick and mortar, not set up and tear down. They were in a building every Sunday. And these people maybe missed 2 Sundays a year. And it took 1.5 to 2 years to get them even back in the building. And they're still not back to where they were. And so when people are gone for, you get 10, 12 weeks over a summer breakish, depending upon where you live. I think as small church pastors, there's this little thing in the back of our mind that we're going, are people going to get comfortable again? Are they going to be good with vacation, listening to, even if it's our sermon online, are they going to be comfortable just stepping in and going back to this online thing, and all of a sudden they're not going to show up? And they were a key part of holding this community together, this one particular space, or they were such a key part of the worship team, or they were so valuable as an encourager to this group of people, and now they're not here. And I just think it's those types of things that we sit around sometimes and go, that makes me nervous when you're a church of less than 100 people.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that was interesting is, how does summer feel different? And just talking about that organizationally, I think we've talked about it a little bit. Something that's been interesting for us, I'm super emotional. Like, I think I've said this before on here. Like, when we bounce around to the different campuses inside of the network, I'm like the weeping prophet. Like, I'm just moving through. Like it is like, emotions for me are a big part of just my identity and who I am. But the spiritually, the Bible teaching and the small groups and things like that. I've struggled in a smaller church to figure out how to do some group things, but something I've loved that we've done as a church is like, and even this summer's continuing, and you're a big part of this. 2 summers ago, we taught just the Beatitudes. I think it was 2 summers ago. It might've been 3. But 2 summers ago, we literally taught just the Beatitudes for like 9 weeks. And then last summer, we spent 6 weeks teaching the Lord's Prayer. And so we just took that passage in Matthew and walked through, our Father, hallowed, and so we taught each section a week. And so for 6 weeks we did that. And this week, what was supposed to be a 4-week series is now turned into a 7-week series of a character study on the life of David. And And I love this. And it just is these really, and I think we do this other times as well. Like we're teaching the seven churches in the first three chapters of Revelation, kind of right after this David series. We're teaching Jonah later this year. We taught Ruth last year. We do some moments like this where we get these longer stretches but I've loved in the summer, and in last year we did a 3-week movie series, like at the movies, and we all grabbed a movie and we rotated between campuses and we taught that movie at different places. But I think that like in this space, I have enjoyed not just going to the default of, hey, let's just teach a movie series or let's just do the normal summer things. We've actually leaned in and really taught some more intimate things in the Bible. This David thing is going to be incredibly complex on so many levels. I mean, outside of Jesus, there's no one that is written more about in the scriptures than David. And he is an incredible mixed bag of sin and man after God's own heart. And I just think people enjoy those. And there's something about the summer that feels different teaching that than doing it in November. And so that's something for us that like in the spiritual development that has been really, really good is we don't just go, hey, and I'm not saying, man, if you're doing a movie series this summer, I'm not saying you're cashing it in, because you and I have both done those types of things.
Make it a blockbuster summer.
Yeah. And we have both done that. I've done it in student ministry. I've done a series called Road Trip, to where what are you listening to while you're traveling, and just take songs that are in the top 40 and unpack those things and do some stuff. But those are moments that that I really, really, I love what we're doing right now inside of spiritual development of our people, because I think it's a really neat transition of just spending a little bit more time, because it just feels different. Like I said, I don't know why, it just feels different teaching this stuff in the summer as opposed to February.
Yeah, I think summer feels different regardless outside of that. And I think that it goes one of either two ways, depending on the leader and how healthy you are going into summer. That if you're healthy going into summer, spiritually, emotionally, organizationally, then I think that summer can really feel like a great opportunity. If you're not healthy spiritually, emotionally, organizationally, then summer can really lead to a lot of anxiety and panic, because your numbers are going to dip. Your involvement is going to dip. And there's anxiety that comes with not knowing, this week, am I going to be preaching to 100 people or to 12 people?
Yeah.
And we're going to do this event. We're going to throw this big event, spend a lot of time, a lot of energy, and it could be that nobody's going to show up for this thing. If you are in a good place, if you're healthy, if you're prepared for that, there can be great opportunities for rest in the summer. There can be great opportunities to dive a little deeper with your people that are there. In smaller crowds gives the opportunity to go a little bit deeper in some things. But if you're not healthy, then summer can be a very, very stressful time.
Yeah, no. So when you start to think about summer, and you mentioned kind of almost the good, the bad, and the ugly of some of it there, you talked about like if you're prepared and you're really, and you're in organizationally, spiritually things, that it can really be a thriving time. And if maybe things are a little off kilter the rest of the year, summer can feel a lot worse. So like inside of kind of maybe the good parts of that, like why is summer a time of opportunity and not just like maybe this opposition and struggle for you? Like when you were leading in that space, what was the good opportunities that you saw, and not just the tension that so many feel?
When the crowds thin out, the masks come off, right? And so there's opportunity to be real. You can have real conversations there. You can have deeper, like I just said, deeper, more meaningful conversations, impact with people that you maybe wouldn't have during the rest of the year. There's opportunity there to try new things. The other thing that I would say is that the people who are there are the people who want to be there. There are a lot of other things to take their attention. There are a lot of other opportunities. Nobody else is going to be there. So there's a built-in excuse to not be there. And so the people that are showing up for your activities, the people that are showing up for your events, the people that are even showing up on Sunday are there because they want to be there. And so I think there's great opportunity in that these people want to be here. The masks have come off. It's smaller crowds. We can get a little bit more personal, a little bit deeper. And I think the summer is an opportunity for great growth within that core group of people that maybe are not your core group of people going into June, but they can really be your core group of people going into September.
No, yeah. And I think it's the hard part. Like you said something really good there, that they already know. And if people have been around church, it's one of the beautiful things about if you're getting the chance to lead a church where a lot of people are new to following Jesus, they don't know all the brokenness of what the church has been. So for them, they're just showing up and they're going, well, where is everybody? It's summer. People are on vacation. They'll be back. And they just keep showing up. But I loved the thing you said, and I would agree that this for me is probably a higher, highlight that kind of steps in. Is that when there are maybe a couple less people, it gives a couple better conversations and just some really good moments of being able to sit around and talk about all of that.
I also think we don't have to pretend that we have it all together. So many times, I think Sunday mornings especially can feel like a performance review. And summer gives you, for all the reasons that we just said, summer gives us in church leadership the opportunity to also take the masks off and say, there's a little less pressure here. We don't have it all together. We can experiment more with some things that maybe we wanted to try that you're not going to try in the Easter season. You can breathe a little bit deeper and have a little bit more freedom to try some things and do some things and not have everything perfectly polished and put together.
And we're talking about that from the perspective of really the typical adult Sunday morning experience. But these same things translate to children's ministry, student ministry. They translate into your small groups. Like a lot of churches take time off in the summer from small groups. Mel and I have done that. In this last year, we kind of handed off a group that we had been leading because we needed to. And then we have been more kind of filtering through a couple of things, and we're about to step back into a season of leading. But in that moment of their like summers, we've not in the last few years not taken summers off. We've slowed them down. We go from weekly to we schedule the summer. We get everybody together. We kind of go, hey, calendar wise, what about this date? And everybody goes, hey, that looks pretty good. And if the vast majority of people can be there, we schedule it. And we're going, hey, we're going to go grab some tacos and play putt-putt on this night. Hey, we're going to meet up here and play yard games. Hey, so-and-so wants to host this one at their house, and we're going to do a movie night. And we kind of work through those. We work through the summer and we find those four things. But there are these moments where the relational side of things start to change. And like the other thing I would say is that a lot of people have time. It's just weird how the world works, because it's like I said earlier, like, I have to go to work, and you're like, you go to work. And so those things but like almost everybody in the world, everybody in the U.S., everybody in our town, in our area where we live, like if you're not a teacher, maybe there's another, like you're working all summer long. Your life does not change. You get up and go to work and do the things. And I just think that like it's a really complicated situation that like people sometimes still have time to take off though in the summer, and it's just viewed different. And so mission trips and like getting away and doing things are something that really, really happen in this end of May, June, July, early August window. And so as we're talking for the next little bit, kind of process all these things a little bit. And I know towards the end, we kind of actually get a little more specific. And just from our experience, I don't have a ton of children's ministry experience. You may have been children's pastor extraordinary 0. There we go. And so both of our ministries have kind of started 6th grade and up. And so I don't have a ton, but I've done a little bit of children's ministry, and you and I both, just being lead pastors, have worked with children's leaders and pastors and had a chance to invest in that. But yeah, so those are just some thoughts there. That I was thinking about what this looks like and what the opportunities are and things.
So what are some of your favorite things that you've done in the summer in the past? You talked about some of the series.
Yeah. I think that one of my favorite things that I've done in adult groups, or in adults, would be in groups of, and we did these affinity groups, and like I got to lead a golf group. I co-led a golf group one year. And where we were at, the guy that was in our church was a local pro, and he had this golf academy thing. And so we would go and we would sit inside of his space, and we would just we'd open up Bible. We would have this, time together, spend about 30 minutes working through, and then we would just go out right outside of his facility. He had a driving range, and we would hit range balls for an hour. We'd just go out there, and he would walk around, and somebody goes, "So how do you do?" And he would give a little. I mean, this is his job, so he can't just sit there and give free lessons, but he would help out and do some things, and it was a ton of fun. And occasionally he would hit, and it was beautiful. And the rest of us were hacks, but that was a ton of fun. And then student ministry was probably one of the most fun, but yet most complicated things we ever did. Was we were looking for some events to do, and we were talking one day, and we talked about going to an amusement park. We don't have any amusement parks really close to us. And back then, 20 years ago, Dollywood wasn't what it is now. And so nobody was thinking, oh, let's get season passes to Dollywood and go watch the Kingdom Airs every week. And so we're about 4.5 to 5 hours from Six Flags in Atlanta. And we bought season passes to Six Flags in Atlanta, and we would take a minimum of 20 kids every week.
Wow.
We would leave at 4 a.m. and get home at
You did that every week
for 7 straight weeks.
Wow.
And so, and then we went to Carowinds, which is closer, which would have made sense to have done that sooner. But we would always, when you get season passes, like when we were at Six Flags, we also would go to Kentucky. You can go to Louisville. We could go to Louisville. They were a part of Six Flags back then. And then with Carowinds, Kings Island, Kings bought Dominion. Them out. Yeah. And so, or Carowinds bought Kings Island. One way or another, they all owned each other, and now Cedar Fair owns all of them. And so we would go up to Kings Dominion. Is that the one that's in Ohio? Or
you got Cedar Point, Kings Dominion, I think.
I think we went to Kings Dominion. Hey, that's in Virginia. Anyway, I'm drawing a blank, but we would go to another park. And so I always get an extra driver. They were a little bit further, but the kids loved it and got to see a new park. And we do that a couple of times in there. But yeah, we would go 6 to 8 straight weeks. And we would do that. And it was fun. And honestly, it's the only thing I had to plan all summer. I didn't have to. We would do a mission trip. We would have some other things. And those were very, very different experiences, of course. But I had lots of help with those types of things. It was the weekly grind of, oh, we're going to get together and play video games, or we're going to play board games. I hate that stuff. I hate just going and then 4 kids show up and you're sitting there with 19 pizzas with a student ministry of 130 kids. And you're going where is everybody? And they're like, oh, they went to the pool over at Tommy's house. Well, Tommy goes to our church. We could have all just gone to the pool if Tommy and his parents would have asked. And you're just like, man, we could have done this different. And I'm going, this is going to be different. And I still have kids that'll message me sometimes on a social media platform and say, picture popped up, something. My mom had an old picture of us just laying around the house from this. And I just thought about how much I loved all those summers. Thanks for doing stupid stuff and taking us to Six Flags and Carowinds and all those things just all summer long. We had so many great moments, and we're just really thankful. And we built a lot of good memories, a lot of good relationships, and people we're close to for a long time out of that. So what about you?
So before I dive into that, I want to back up a little bit because you were asking about children's ministry, and I was thinking about my children's ministry experience. And the only children's ministry experience that I have is when I was the lead pastor of a church. My children's pastor said to me one time, we think it'd be great if you stepped into children's ministry one weekend and taught our children's programming thing, that it'd be great for them to hear from the lead pastor, from the senior pastor. So I had a Sunday that was coming up that I was off from teaching. I was still going to be there, but I wasn't teaching that week. And I said, man, that's great. I'm going to hop into our children's ministry and do the lesson, do the teaching there. And they were in a series on David. You were talking about going into David for the summer. And I got tasked with David and Absalom, which you don't really hear that a lot in children's ministry. It's not a flannel graph story.
What?
And me, I'm a storyteller.
I love flannel graph.
And I thought me being storyteller is going to equate amazing with children. And so I tell this story of David and his son Absalom. And if you remember the story, Absalom is riding along on his horse and his hair gets tangled in a tree and he's hanging from a tree and he gets killed with darts. And so I brought out a piñata and hung a piñata up in the class and had the kids do piñata and candy going everywhere. I'm like, this is the coolest children's ministry in the history of children's ministry. And I'm telling this story of Absalom hanging in the tree and getting killed with darts. And I'm like, he's a human piñata. And I'm staring and all these kids are just staring at me. Their eyes are so big. And I'm thinking, I just nailed this. And so I'm talking to my children's pastor and you could tell that she was a little uncomfortable because I was her boss. She's like, I don't think that was very age appropriate, Tony. You're talking like, yeah, I didn't think about it like that. Yeah, I don't do children's ministry. I'm not very good at children's ministry, not my thing. But I did do student ministry for a long, long time, for about a decade. And one of the things that always frustrated me here in East Tennessee is that things shut down in the summer with student ministry. And for me, summer was when we ramped things up, because I can understand in adult ministry that there's a lot of vacations going on, but with kids, they're out of school. They've got all the time in the world. And so my summers in student ministry were completely packed. Looking back on them now, almost too packed. We did a program that we called AWOL, that every Tuesday in the summer, those who wanted to participate, middle school and high school, would meet at the church at 8:00. We'd have a quick devotional, a prayer. We'd load up in the 15-passenger vans, and we'd go do a service project for 3 hours. Then we'd take a break for lunch, and then we'd go do another service project for 3 hours before meeting back at the church at 4. We did that every single Tuesday, unless we were at camp, at a conference or a retreat or something like that. Then we did another program called Strive that I stole straight from Willow Creek. It was students turning responsibility into valuable experience and getting kids out. I did Mondays at the movies. I did Thursday night basketball. But the thing that I loved most that we did was, and I don't remember if I told you this story off air or if I told you this story on air, but we did a thing. Our student ministry program, our Wednesday night student ministry program, was called 242, based off of the verse in Acts chapter 2, verse 42. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teachings, to the fellowship, breaking of bread, and to prayer, and everyone felt a continual sense of awe. So it was kind of the structure of our student ministry program. Well, then in summer, we did what we called 242 Family Edition. And we had, right across the parking lot from us was a private school. And they had this massive, massive field. And so we talked to them, said, could we use your field on Wednesday nights? They weren't in school, so they didn't care. And so we did not just student ministries, but we invited the entire family to come out, bring blankets, bring a picnic basket. We did some acoustic worship. We did some games, water balloon tosses, ultimate frisbee, stuff like that. And then sitting down on your blankets, we would do a teaching time and then really base it around discussion questions that you had sitting on your blanket with your family. And some of the most transformative stories that I heard out of my time in student ministries came out of that program that we did for like 3-4 straight summers, and really loved that. And so you flash forward to when I find myself as a lead pastor, and I'd seen the way that worked so well in student ministry. And so I wanted to try doing something like that with adult ministry. And we didn't do Wednesday night church at the church that I was founding pastor and lead pastor at. But for summer, we said we were going to do something that we called summer nights. And on Wednesday nights, we tried to kind of follow that same format from what I had done in student ministry. And it was a bomb. Man, did it fail. Man, did it fail. We had a church of about 1,000 people that called our church home, and we did these summer nights on Wednesday nights in the summer, and we'd have 15, 20 people that would show up for these things. And my staff put so much time and energy into it, creating activities, and it was all encompassing as the church. So our creative arts department would do worship, and we'd do it outside, and my student ministry department would handle games and stuff like that. And then children's ministry had something because we were having kids, and so we'd do a little section that was for the kids. I'd do a teaching time, and then our community department would write questions so that, based off our whole church got behind this, and we would have 500, 600, 700 people on Sunday mornings. And we do this thing, and we promoted it and pushed it and pushed it and pushed it and pushed it. And we'd have 15, 20 people show up on Wednesday nights.
Did you ever find out why?
I think because summer's hard. And I think because we didn't have a rhythm of doing Wednesday nights. It wasn't something that our church did. And so this is something new that we were asking. The people of our church were used to coming on Sunday mornings and maybe a small group during the week. And so now we're asking people that it wasn't a part of their rhythm in already a time that they would say is crazy of the summer. And we're asking them to come do something different. So we only did that one summer. It was such a huge failure that we didn't try it again. But loved the idea. It just was the highlight of my ministry in student ministries, and something that was a massive flop in adult ministry.
I think it's one of the reasons that in the last, I'm going to say 15, 20 years, that you talked about student ministry somewhat shuts down. I think that what happened was student pastors moved from, hey, we meet every Wednesday night or we meet every Sunday night, and we've got 30, 50, 100, 250 students who are showing up, 6th through 12th graders that are converging on our campus every, like I said, Sunday night, Wednesday night, from beginning of school to the end of school. It's these incredible moments. And then what they started seeing in the summer is even student ministries of 100, 200 kids were having 10 kids show up. And you've got a staff of 2, 3, 4, 5 people who have invested hours to do these normal continual Wednesday night, we'll call them, youth nights, that the typical youth night, even if it's got a summer vibe to it, that you're still trying to continue student ministry with the way it is. Kids don't have anywhere to be. Let's get things out. And on top of that, you're doing things like you talked about, like doing service projects, once every other week or once every week, or you're getting together and going, once to Dollywood or to Splash Mountain or whatever it is that you're doing. You've got some other events and things planned in, and then you're still trying to run that one night of student ministry as well. And in theory, it should work perfectly. In theory, it should be something where everyone is on the same page and it's all moving in a perfect, kind of really specific direction. But when you get there and you've got a fraction of the kids, the question starts to become, is it worth the investment? Not because of those kids, but could I switch my energy? Could I? And I think that's where I started. So I started, instead of doing big youth things all summer, I did a summer where we met. We had a kid who was in a wheelchair, and he couldn't get out, and so 10 of us went to him, and we just went to his house. He stayed with his grandmother, and we went to her house. And she did, and I told her, I said, hey, look, we've got a budget. We can do this. She's like, nope. She provided pizza and made cookies and stuff for us every week. And we showed up and we watched, we were doing a video Bible study that particular summer. We did this a couple of summers though. And 10 or 15 of us would show up, and then we would sit around after, spending an hour eating food, doing a Bible study, working through some things, we'd play video games for 2 or 3 hours. And because that's what Ryan could do. And that's something that he could be, and he was better than the vast majority of us, especially me. And it was something that we could all do and be a part of, that everyone was on an equal playing field. And yet we had a ton of those are some of I'm still close to some of those guys as any group I've ever been a part. And so the thought shifted. And I think that's kind of the thing for me is I was just wondering why, and I don't know that I have great answers as to why the typical youth Sunday night, Wednesday night service doesn't work the way it works in August through May. I don't know why it doesn't work the same in June and July. I think sometimes, kids probably can't drive until maybe halfway through their sophomore year. You see that being the smallest group in your group, or the smallest groups by grade. Those are the smallest grades in your youth group, your student ministry.
What's the smallest group?
Sophomores, juniors, and seniors. Like juniors and seniors,
once they can start driving.
Once they start driving, they attend. Yeah. Their attendance starts to go down a little bit. Not always. There's going to be somebody that can go in and go, that's the largest groups I've got, and that's awesome. But 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade, they have no choice. Mom and dad bring them, and they drop them off at church. In the summer, mom and dad are going, it's so nice outside. It's daylight till 9:00. Let's just go do something. Or we've been busy all day. We were out here doing this, doing that. We had to mow the yard. We had to do this. We had to do that. Let's just hang out, and we're not going to worry about those things.
Yeah, and I just didn't experience that in my 10 years of student ministry. Summer, we boomed. And now, in fairness, I haven't done student ministries in 20 years.
Yeah.
It's been 20 years. The world's changed a lot. But
you were in Vegas, weren't you?
Yeah.
I wonder... And again, I don't think this is an unfair question at all. I mean, it's literally called Sin City. I wonder if there's something of the difference of Sin City versus the Bible Belt in that as well.
Could be.
That would be a fun conversation. Nobody that's listening to this would care about it, but that would be a fun conversation one day. Because that's something when you were talking, I'm going, I wonder, because I thought about that a minute ago, and I just wonder if there's something about the fact that kids just saw church differently because they weren't 20th generation followers of Jesus.
Yeah, could be.
It's an interesting thought in space.
So now let's switch to the bad of summer. What makes summer feel like a black hole in church attendance?
I think it dips into some of the things we almost started that transition a little bit with student ministry. I think and can I say, I think social media has made this worse. When you wake up and you show up to church and you're there to work, and nobody tells you they're going on vacation. Nobody tells you that, and you get 3 families on vacation, and a couple families at the lake, and a couple families who were sick. And all of a sudden you've got 10 families, which is 30 people in a church of 60 that's just not there.
Yeah.
And you don't know.
I think that's the thing. Everyone's out and no one tells you.
Yeah. And then you hop on social media and you're just going, oh my goodness, they're here, they're doing, and I don't know if it's,
they're at the beach, they're at the mountains, they're at their cousin's wedding.
No thoughts about anything.
And meanwhile, you're preaching to a room that echoes.
Because
there's nobody there.
And then I think that we all start to carry as leaders in the church this weight of, if I was doing something better, would they vacation Sunday afternoon to Saturday night? Would they leave? I know they wouldn't, but I agree with your statement, but I just think that everybody leads differently and thinks differently. Craig Groeschel would never think that. He's just super mentally tough. Andy Stanley would never think that. Believe the best, don't assume the worst. All these different things. It would all this stuff. there's just, when you talk about performance review, small church, those guys haven't been in a small church in a really, really, really long time. And they started churches in the church era, in very churchy areas. And it was just there.
Well, but I think it directly correlates to what you were saying earlier about church planting and when you're in setup and tear down. And we've talked about this at length before, that I've done many, many church plants, led in many church plants. And in the last church that I was the lead pastor at, our first 4 years, we were a portable church, setting up, tearing down, having to be there at 6 a.m. to get ready, and having a team of 50 to 100 volunteers that were there for setup, and then a different group of 50 to 100 that would stay late for tear down. And then we spent $1.8 million, built a beautiful state-of-the-art building, moved 25 minutes away from where we were meeting in the downtown of the city. And overnight, it went from community that was there, people that had ownership in what was taking place. There was a pride that came with what was taking place, to now they didn't have anything to do. They didn't have to be there. We had this group of 100 people that were used to coming at 6 a.m. We had breakfast set up for them. It was an incredible time of camaraderie, community, and investment into people that I would say rivaled what was taking place during the services on Sunday mornings. And then literally overnight that went away, because we didn't do a good job of saying, okay, you've done this for 4 years. You've set up curtains and rods every Sunday morning for 4 years. Now what are you going to do? And it was amazing to see the fall off that took place from people that would plan their vacations around their responsibilities that they had on Sunday mornings, because they had ownership in the program. They had ownership in what was taking place. They took pride in what was happening. They could see the part that they were playing. You know, they could see their role in the bigger picture that was being played out through our church community. Now, all of a sudden, there's no responsibility. If they're not there, who's going to miss them? Mm-hmm. And so it gave them more of an excuse to not be there.
There's a huge difference in feeling like you've got to set up, and we use the drape and rod, the curtain and rod thing, but that's just one of a myriad of, you know, when you're in a setup and tear down world, the coffee is even complicated. But there is a big difference when you've got a station that's the coffee, and maybe once you were there, you moved to Keurigs instead of, or even if you've just got the big bun machines and you put it in and go, there's a huge difference when it's all set up and you walk in and hit a button and the coffee flows out, as opposed to you had to show up early, clean the machines, get the pots ready, do all the stuff, hook things up, set up the table, all the things that had to happen. You're so right. There's such a difference. And with less investment and responsibility comes less interest many times not in Jesus, but I think it causes is our interest in the church, in the serving, like they don't, like you said it beautifully, they don't need me as much because anybody could do this. There's a 10-year-old could do this coffee. It actually required somebody with, you know, some leadership and skill to rally a team of 10 people. Now, literally 2 people walk in and hit a button, and we set out coffee and donuts that they picked up at Dunkin' on the way in. This isn't, you know, they don't need me. Anybody can do that. So me not being there. But as the investment goes in the serving, I think sometimes it causes the drift in the connectedness to Jesus as well. Just, I think Philippians is just such an underrated verse. Sorry, it's not an underrated verse, but I think that we miss some parts that Jesus took the very nature of a servant. And it was this servant of Jesus was such a big deal. And when we become the consumers, I think we miss. And so, yeah, no, I think that's like such a big deal with summer and where that hits as far as like what the hard and the bad things are. So,
what do you think that we try to force in the summer that we should just let go of?
What happens the other 8 months of the year or 9 months of the year? the Sunday morning, like everything needs to, like we're in a different boat right now. We don't have a full band. I've got a guy that talks to me probably at least once a month and going, you don't need a full band. Like he doesn't love the drums. He doesn't want those things there. All of that stuff is something that he would love to see kind of go away. He wishes we just take the drums off the stage. He's like, if you have an acoustic guitar, you don't need drum. And I'm like, well, we're not going to do that. And I was like, and the reason we're not doing drums is right now we just don't have 3 drummers. Like our worship leader is an incredible drummer and he'll play some, but he can't do that. But I think we just try to force, even if you've got all those things, of trying to make things happen that just maybe aren't as important. And so what does it matter if 1 week, if you've got the best band within 100 miles of your church and you've got a week where you've got 3 or 4 people on vacation, instead of trying to run around and find people, drag people from other churches, call people who played 10 years before, what if you just set your piano player and 1 vocalist on stage and did songs a little bit differently? And maybe you don't even do musical worship. Maybe you say, hey, today's gonna be something a little bit different. And we're going to turn on some, instrumental music for a second. And we're going to take a second and reflect, and we're going to do some things. And we've set up something that's different to kind of get through. I just think the thing that we try to force is the normal. And if we're talking about, if we address summer from a mindset of it's not normal, it's crazy that we would think that the normal approach would be the right way to do those 8, 10, 12 weeks. What about you?
Something that I hadn't really thought through that was coming into my mind as you were talking there. I can remember when I first came to the Southeast here, and was shocked in the first summer that I spent here. I was the summer before my senior year of college, and I had a job as associate student ministry pastor at a church in the area, and was excited to experience that and stay here and get an apartment and do all that stuff. And I was amazed at how many church revivals there were in the summer that I'd heard of revivals from, like, what's the old movie, the Apostle. You remember that one?
Oh yeah.
But I'd never experienced a revival. We didn't do those where I grew up, and there were tent revivals taking place all over the place. Now this was the 90s, and how often we tend to think of summer as a period of revival, when really I think that it's a period of renewal. I think that it should be more a period of rest. I think that it's more a period, maybe not renewal, that's not the right word. Let's say recovery. I think it's a period of recovery, that you've got to chase momentum, is what we feel like so much in the summer, when summer really should just be a time of recovery. You're gearing up for the launch of the new ministry season. And I think the vast majority of churches view the start of their ministry year as September. And so summer is a time to recover. You've just come out of Easter, which is one of the craziest seasons of the church year. And instead of looking at summer as a time, like you said, to really amp things up, that it's a time for us just to recover. And there's some great things that happen in recovery. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago, that there are some really healing things that happen in times of recovery. There's some great work that can be done in times of recovery, but it's also setting you up for what's to come.
And that's an interesting thing. Like, actually, I think that the world has shifted because school in our area starts back so early that if we wait till September, people have developed a different rhythm, and you'll have a hard time getting them back in. So I actually am a huge proponent of, like, that first, second week of August really
being your launch.
Yeah, really starting to launch back in those, maybe that second week, third week at the latest. You mentioned, you've got Easter, Mother's Day, Memorial Day, graduation. You've got so many things that happen from April through, kind of the 2/3 of the way through May, that you kind of catch this space and you go, man. And then the thing that's interesting is in the conversation is that it's typically like, man, why, this is the moment where things should ramp up with student ministry, or things should be this. And it's going like all this busy, and then kids only get a couple of months and then they roll right back into school. I feel like we get them so much longer now from August through May that I don't know. There's just a lot of thoughts there around how should we program and work through the summer based on some of these transitions and things that we're seeing with so many holidays and things that are scheduled and stuff that's going on. Father's Day has almost just become a blip that moves through,
lowest attended Sunday of the year.
Yeah, because most dads don't want to go to church. And
whereas Mother's Day is one of the top 3 highest attended Sundays of the year.
And because mama prays and dad wants to go fishing.
Go play golf. Yeah.
And so the day that dad's day, everybody's like, well, we'll just stay at home. He doesn't really want to go anyway. And it's just a sad state of where the church is. So,
hey, we've covered the good. We've covered the bad. We've got to hit the ugly. But before we do, we're going to have a quick word from our show sponsor.
Is your ministry ready to reach new heights? Hire Ministries is here to help you grow, lead, and serve with excellence. From leadership coaching to practical resources for church management, they offer everything you need to take your ministry to the next level. We're proud to have them as our sponsor. Visit hireministries.com today and see how they can help you make a greater impact.
Hey, so thanks for hanging with us through this half of this conversation. Summer can be crazy. It can be such a blessing, but I love how Tony just said is it should be and can be incredibly refreshing and renewing in our lives personally, for our church, and for our faith as we just journey through these things for ourselves and for those who get to hang out with us. Join us back next week as we continue and close out this conversation. And then we're pretty excited in a couple of weeks to have some special guests kind of going through a fun, kind of quick hit answer type of conversation. So thanks for being here today, and we will see you next time on the porch.